Thank you. Senator McGrath.
Thank you, Mr Acting Deputy President. Today I rise to speak on matters of public interest, and I rise to speak on matters that concern the links between the New South Wales CFMEU and controversial businessman George Alex, and between Mr Alex and two Islamic State terrorists. George Alex is a controversial Sydney businessman and an undercharged bankrupt. Known for his connections with the criminal underworld, he recently pleaded guilty to making threats to kill a woman and her family over a business debt. He is being investigated by the Royal Commission into Trade Union Governance and Corruption. Khalid Sharoof is a convicted terrorist who is now fighting with Islamic State in the Middle East. He was jailed for his involvement in plots to blow up the MCG on AFL Grand Final Day in 2005, Sydney's Lucas Heights nuclear reactor and Crown Casino during Grand Prix weekend. He was arrested in what was then Australia's largest counter-terrorism operation and pleaded guilty to possessing goods in preparation for a terrorist act. After serving only 4 years in jail in exchange for agreeing to mental health treatment, news reports state that he was picked up and hired as a debt collector for George Alex. The Royal Commission also heard evidence from Sharoof's mother-in-law, Corinne Nettleton, a bookkeeper for George Alex, that Sharoof spent a lot of time at Alex's place and assumed that he's one of his debt collectors. On the 3rd of November 2014, the ABC's Four Corners program screened its investigative story on the links between Sharoof and figures in the building industry. It reported that Sharoof came to the attention of authorities after an alleged extortion threat. It involved a dispute between Tony DiCarlo and Australia's biggest residential builder, Meriton. DiCarlo alleged that Meriton owed him millions of dollars. Four Corners reported a confrontation in which Meriton's employees were approached and threatened. Meriton took the alleged extortion threat to the police. The Four Corners report explains how the dispute escalated and Sharoof was involved and became violent and brandished a gun. Soon after, Sharoof's associate was gunned down at his door. A New South Wales police investigation into these incidents is still underway. In a highly concerning incident, Sharoof was again alleged linked to George Alex in 2014 when the ABC reported on the 3rd of November 2014 that he was taken on a shooting trip along with another terrorist convicted in the 2005 anti-terror raids, Mohammed Elamar. George Alex's lawyers claimed the trip was a pick-me-up for Alex's depression and the parties, to quote, did very little shooting but had a big barbecue, end of quote. But the police were reportedly called out after they received a complaint of excessive gunfire and found Sharoof with a rifle to his shoulder, pointing straight ahead, with large amounts of ammunition on the ground. He had no gun licence and refused to be interviewed. The ABC reports that Sharoof was summoned to court the following month, but the court never got to hear his case. Within weeks, he and Elamar had eluded authorities and joined Islamic State forces in the Middle East. This is the man who was the infamous father who posed with his 7-year-old son holding the head of a decapitated victim. These matters raise grave concerns about the types of individuals who have been involved in parts of the construction industry. I also want to raise concerns about the connection between George Alex, whose purported debt collector was this convicted terrorist who is now fighting for Islamic State, and the New South Wales branch of the CFMEU. The Royal Commission has heard evidence that the New South Wales CFMEU has been receiving kickbacks in return for favouring construction firms controlled by or associated with Alex. The Commission's investigation is ongoing, and I would not want to preempt its conclusions. However, there is some very important evidence already on the record that is important to identify and consider. Evidence of the Commission shows that companies controlled by or associated with George Alex were formed and entered enterprise bargaining agreements with the CFMEU. Some of these companies went into liquidation with large sums of money owed to their workers. The evidence also shows that at least one CFMEU member was violently threatened after raising concerns about links between the union and the George Alex companies. The submissions from counsel assisting the Royal Commission, Jeremy Stolar QC, state that 19-year CFMEU delegate Jose Mario Barros had been subjected to utterly inappropriate and disparaging comments by Brian Parker, New South Wales State Secretary of the CFMEU. Although Parker denied it in his evidence, transcripts and proceedings show that he called Barros a dog, wanted to bash him, and otherwise referred to him abusively. The evidence also showed that Barros was contacted by Mr Alex, who said that he was running out of patience with him, asked where he lived, and closed by saying, "See you tomorrow." Mr Barrios reported these matters to the police, and they continue to be investigated by the Royal Commission. But rather than taking every step to assist with this investigation, and indeed pursuing these matters internally as well, the CFMEU destroyed documents in what has, whether intentionally or not, obscured the Commission's investigation. On the 6th of September 2014, the Daily Telegraph reported how the Royal Commission issued a notice for the union to supply it with emails about its relationship with George Alex's companies. Weeks later, the union found it had a problem with disk space on union computers. They were preventing emails arriving, and that would require the union to delete years of emails. In an email to staff, the report states that the branch's general manager, Kylie Ray, said, to quote, "We're just days away from the Royal Commission kicking off, and there is a lot going on. We need everyone to make this a priority, please." End of quote. She and a team of 9 people spent 3 days deleting emails. Ms Ray said she deleted Mr Parker's emails and was positive there was nothing there that would have interested the Commission. The Royal Commission also found that another CFMEU member who raised concerns about the links between the union and Mr Alex's companies, Brian Fitzpatrick, received death threats in response from New South Wales branch organiser Darren Greenfield and was frozen out of the union. Another witness to the Royal Commission was too afraid to give evidence about the alleged kickbacks or his associates to the unions. He was forced to explain to Commissioner Hayden that he was being as honest as he could, given that he had a wife and 3 children waiting outside for him. These matters are deeply concerning. The crossovers between 2 Islamic State terrorists and an underworld figure, and between this figure and the CFMEU, are a reminder of the importance of maintaining a strong cop on the beat in the building and construction industry. Thank you, Mr Acting Deputy President.
Thank you, Senator.